Hello, hello, hello. Good night, everyone in cyberspace.
Hi, good night.
Sorry, let me do that again. Just checking technical difficulties. Are you seeing, everyone seeing me?
Yes, I'm seeing you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good night, everyone. Welcome, welcome to Shero's Anti-Trafficking League's Town Hall event, where we'll be addressing the topic of human trafficking in Jamaica. My name is Crystal Witter, and I'll be your host this evening. So obviously, you might be wondering who are we and why are we here today? Shero Anti-Trafficking League is a non-governmental organization committed to playing our part in addressing human trafficking, especially human sex trafficking in Jamaica, using or through 3 tiers: advocacy, awareness, and action. How the idea came about: in early December 2020, I started an Instagram page called Shero Jamaica. I never had any pictures, never had any followers, nothing. At that time, I did not know what I wanted to do at all. All I know, I was going to do something. At the time, I wanted to make a change as it relates to sexual exploitation of women. But I was telling myself, Crystal, you're not ready. You're not ready to take on this big challenge. This area is of particular interest to me because I'm a survivor of sexual exploitation as well. By the end of December, I was offered a job in human trafficking in Canada. And so I decided to put my idea on hold. Mark you, I had no experience working in this area and I was not trained professionally. What I do know is that I have a voice and a passion for positive change. Those are all the key resources I use to becoming successful in completing the project I spearheaded in Canada. From that experience, God drew me out. I was like, okay, he said to me, this is what you should be doing, working to address the serious issue in your home country. There's obviously so much more to this story, but we'll touch on that later. So to get right into our program, welcome again, and we're ready to kick off our first monumental event. Before we get into our program, I just want to do a few little key housekeeping rules. Zoom etiquette, we call it right now in cyberspace, but I'll encourage you to keep your mics on mute until we're ready for discussion. This is a town hall event, so we're encouraging you to talk back to us. We'll be doing that in a respectful and coordinated manner. Members of my team will be monitoring the chat if you have any questions or concerns as well. So to kick off our town hall, we'll have our first guest performer. You know him as DL. I know him as Mr. Thomas. DL is a former educator and now musical artist. He's the third place winner of Rising Stars 2018. And he also rose to mainstream prominence with hits such as Pretty Melanin, Majesty, Too Young, and so many others. DL is known for its authentic style, enthusiasm, and woman empowerment messages. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming DL Music to our virtual stage.
Woo! Thank you, Crystal. Enough love, enough love to everyone here. I know you can't see me yet, but yeah, turning on the camera right now. Find that noise? Live and direct. All right, start video.
So while we're waiting on DL to get settled in, welcome to whoever is just joining us. We are live and ready for action, ready to start our discussion, ready to get our ideas rolling, and ready to get into our big event. DL, all set?
Yeah, man, enough love. She's too much. She's too much. Anyway, all right. So it's a pleasure to be here, ladies and gentlemen. Blessings and love to all. Blessings and love to all. Crystal, excellent initiative. But I'm not here to talk. I'm here to sing. So let me get to that. This one is dedicated. It's a rough time in Jamaica. It's a rough time. This one is dedicated to all who are mourning and all who have been affected, which is all of us really, by what has been going on down here in the past couple of days. A sweet little girl, never harm nobody. Wake up early to make our money. A little stinking piece of nobody. I can't believe her now, no. Here she begging, please, don't kill me. You got what you wanted, please leave me. I know every day you can run. I promise you your day must come. What me would I do you if me catch you? Nothing more you forget to. Father God alone could have saved you. Would I never ever live you see a prison. What me would I do if I'm a daughter? You know, she say I'm a little sister. God alone could have saved you. Would I never ever live to see a prison. So I cry. I cry with my heart. I cry. So I cry. I cry with my heart. I cry. Yeah, and if I dirt, then I dirt when Babylon come, consider then I me house call me. Now go run, now go find no gun, because you're not dead that easy. You not get off that easy. And it not done fast, you go suffer. Just like the baby girl from round the gutters. If I bullet you bomb, we are gonna see them, give them revenge. What me would I do if me catch you? Nothing more you be better. And Father God alone could have saved you. Would have never ever live to see a prison. What me would I do if I'm a daughter? You know, sister, I'm a little sister. And God alone could have saved you. Would have never ever live to see a prison. So I cry. I cry with my heart. I cry. Say I cry. I cry with my heart. I cry. Father God, you know me, I know bad man. Normally we leave it in your hands. When the fussy dead, we beg forgiveness. Either way you take it, call it justice. Father God, you know me, I'm a bad man. Family, we leave it in your hands. When the fasting that we beg forgiveness. Either way you take it, God, it just is. So I cry, 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 I cry. But with my heart, I cry. Said I cry, 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 I cry. But with my heart, I cry. So this one is dedicated to every woman who has suffered any kind of abuse at the hands of men. I am a man, and as a man, I apologize, even though I did not do you any wrong. But it's my people, it's my, my gender. We are so sorry. And we hope that you'll be strong and get over whatever it is that you are going through. Said I cry, cry for you. I cry. Blessings.
Can we clap?
Thank you.
Amazing.
Well, Crystal, I never sure. I'm supposed to sing more than one song, still, but I see Crystal, so say, cause we have to support Crystal thing, we're gonna just go and sing and thing,
One
Janelle,
more is
oh my
good,
God.
DL. One more is good.
One more is good. All right, not a problem. Take it away. Let it play straight away. No delay. John, God is here. Christopher. Anyway, all right.
Human
We'll
trafficking.
leave the reading until later. All right. So this one now is dedicated to my melanin queens. You don't know. It's appreciation for my melanin queens. For big one up every single time, cause I'm special. I love on a bad, 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 bad. So yeah, this one is named Pretty Melanin. I'm gonna start without a beat. It said, pretty little melanin. Oh girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing. I said, yeah, pretty little melanin. Oh girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing. What kind of magic is this? I don't believe it to be true. A good and normal human being. Walk and talk and look like you. Not just your color I'm in love with, no girl, but it's the way that you wear your crown. And I can't ignore your energy no more. So if you love me, and place no one above you with your pretty little melanin. Oh girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin is glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing. I said you're pretty little melanin. Oh, girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing. And I say, heart attack, you give me heart attack because I can't believe the way you're so attractive, girl. Your skin absorbs the sun. What a thing, and she know that beauty's from within. Girl, you better learn your history now. You need to know your royalty. I said I can't ignore your energy no more. I'm gonna love my place.
No, you acted.
Oh girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing. I said, yeah, pretty little melanin. Oh girl, you don't know the joy you bring. little melanin thing. I love your golden brown. A little crispy round the edges. You're rocking brands, but you take off the golden crown. Chocolate dripping to your berries, and all your sweetness is so empty now. When I want your sugar and we love it together, girl. Must admit I'm feeling heaven and earth. And every time you let me in, I feel the magic of your melanin, oh, baby. Pretty little melanin, oh girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin's glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing. I said, yeah, pretty little melanin. Oh, girl, you don't know the joy you bring. I love the way your skin glistening. Oh, you pretty little melanin thing, girl. Pretty little melanin, oh. Pretty little melanin, oh. Pretty little melanin skin, girl. Blessings and love to everyone on here. My name is DL. Enough love, Crystal, and the Sheer team. Give thanks.
Thank you so much, Neil. I can't find the words. What a way to start our live town hall by sharing empowering messages, empowering words. Your messages of empowerment continues to resonate with me, and I'm sure everybody on the chat will agree. Um, Now, I still can't really get over, Dale's performance, but in cyber world, wherever you are, just give him a few snaps. Give him a few snaps. So yeah, I'm now pleased to invite our guest speaker tonight, Miss Rasha Hafar. Rasha is an anti-slavery activist from Tunisia. Her journey in combating human trafficking and modern slavery started back when she was only 18 years old. She's the founder of Youth Against Slavery Movement, which is a global movement to engage and empower youth to stand up collectively against this crime and to raise awareness in their communities. Rafa is a Fulbright Scholarship scholar, a Peace Fellow with the Dalai Lama, a social entrepreneur, and has also been recognized for her anti-trafficking advocacy by the government of Tunisia and the United Nations. Raja is also so accomplished. Time would not give me allow Time would not allow me to go into more of her accomplishments, but essentially, combating human trafficking is her life's mission. Please join me in welcoming Rafar to our virtual stage.
Thank you so much. I wanted to say that I cannot beat up the performance of Adil. That was fantastic, and thank you for having me here today. It's such an honor to be among, the Jamaican community. For me, it's really amazing to just connect and learn from each other and share our experiences. Would you like to ask me a question, or would you like to just dive in?
Go right ahead, Russell. Just dive in, expounding on human trafficking.
All right. So I have to say that I didn't prepare a lot about the context in Jamaica. I do not really work on the Caribbean, but I wanted to just share in general knowledge about human trafficking from my own experience, what we're working on, and what has been working. What could be some good practices that we can share together, and how can we collectively rise up for this important mission as youth as well, because I see that this place is vibing with amazing youth, and that's my passion, is to connect with youth and work together in putting solutions towards this problem. And congratulations, Crystal, for this amazing event and for the work you're doing. It's really inspiring. So I'm going to start by talking about human trafficking a little bit and just explain what human trafficking is. So human trafficking is, the final definition of human trafficking is found in the Palermo Protocol, which received international recognition back in 2000. So of course, it comes from the United Nations as the final and um, last definition of human trafficking. And it explains that human trafficking is an act that needs we need three elements to exist in a crime so that we can say it's a crime of human trafficking and not just a crime of exploitation or a crime of another sort of a crime. So when we talk about human trafficking, we need to look at the actions, we need to look at the means, and we need to look at the purpose. So human trafficking is the exploitation of someone through, recruiting them or harboring them or transporting them or, kidnapping them or employing them through the means which could be either force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of exploiting them and making a financial gain or even a personal gain. And that could be for the purpose of commercial sexual exploitation or labor exploitation, or what we also call as um, modern slavery or slavery like practices. So, what falls under slavery like practices is really a big list. So, when we talk about child marriage, when we talk about forced marriage, when we talk about forcing women to rent their wombs, for example, taking a child for when we look at surrogacy around the world, some women, the wombs are being rented regardless of their consent. So anything that happens to someone for the purpose of a gain in the end, where that person did not give consent, or even if their consent is there, but they did not have control over that situation, is a trafficking victim. And of course, we need to keep in mind that children below the age of 18, if they are found in situations of sexual exploitation, they are always looked at as victims. So anyone below the age of 18, if they were found in a commercial sexual situation, if they're working as, if they were making money from sexual services, we will never call them as child prostitutes, because there's no such thing as a child prostitute. All kids in prostitution are victims. So I don't know if this is a good explanation. I'm just trying to see like what I'm also testing with, like how can we explain human trafficking in a way that is clear to people. So for example, I'll tell you a little bit about my own experience and how I almost got into trafficking. What was the trafficking type I was going to fall into, and what was the work I have been doing and what I'm doing now. And we can look into that. How can we make that more into the context of Jamaica and, connect the dots and look at solutions for the future. So when I was 18, I'm half Syrian, half Tunisian, and I was born and raised in Dubai. And after finishing my high school, I moved to Tunisia to study, and I only spoke Arabic and English. However, all the education in Tunisia was in French, so I didn't feel like I belonged. I started applying for scholarships abroad. I got a scholarship in England, but in order for me to support my living, I had to make an extra source of income, and that was the easiest way for an 18-year-old is to work as a babysitter, right? It's a very famous thing for kids that age to go and work as an au pair or a nanny or a babysitter somewhere else, where you can live with the family, they can cover you, financially, and give you, living and expenses, and you can just eat and have a shelter, but then they also pay you to take care of the kids. So I put my CV online. I started receiving so many requests from families saying that they're interested, saying that they will pay me a great amount of money, that the kids are great, I'll have my own room, I'll have my own time. I was going to be paid £3,000 a month. It was like fantastic. At the age of 18, I was like, wow, the world is opening up for me. But then when I started talking to these families and actually asking them to Skype with me, I wanted to see the parents, I wanted to see the room, I wanted to get into the details. They started acting in a very skeptical way. No one wanted to Skype with me. They all had the same language. We are very busy. Just send us your documents, your passport, come as soon as possible. Our lawyers will take care of all the migration papers and all the labor papers and everything. One of them, when I insisted on them, he sent me a standard photo that you take out of a frame when you buy it in a store. And it had measurements below. It had like centimeters and all of that. So when I saw that, something hit in my head and I was like, this feels wrong. Something is sketchy in here. So I did some research online and I realized that's how majority of trafficking rings and traffickers do it. They fool young generations, they fool the youth, they fool the girls and the boys into believing that they're going to be offered a real job. And then once they actually get to the destination country, they realize that it's not a job and they find themselves trafficked. They use, force. So in the beginning, they use the fraud, but now once you get there, they use the force and the coercion into making the exploitation benefit from you. So I forgot, and then years later, I was doing my master's in Italy, and I came across actually a victim who was trafficked. She was Nigerian. She accepted a similar job position and she traveled, and then she ended up trafficked and sexual exploitation for 10 years. So when she told me her story, everything in my in my life just came together, and I was like, oh my God, this could have been me, but it wasn't. So something happened, the universe saved me somehow, and I didn't end up trafficked. So I felt a huge responsibility to use that piece of knowledge to educate others, to raise awareness, to prevent other girls and boys from falling into these traps, because it's a trap, because it is slavery, because it is the utmost atrocious truth in reality of violating someone's dignity and integrity as a human being. So since then, I started doing research and learning about the issue, and I started to realize that there's so much hush hush around this crime. It's pushed down, it's not prioritized, it's excluded from so many different spaces. It's not something governments want to prioritize to talk about. It's not something activists want to talk about, because it comes with a big weight of, it's a really dark topic to talk about. We're talking about being human beings being sold and bought and sold and bought and used as a commodity over and over again. And it has so many different faces and types, and it's different from one country to the other. It could be international, it could be national. And some of the myths that I have come across as well that I really want to debunk is that, human trafficking is sexual trafficking, and that's not true. There is sexual trafficking, there is labor trafficking, there is forced labor, there's child trafficking, there's all the different types that come under the modern slavery and like the slavery like practices. Another issue that also people, whenever we talk about human trafficking, you hear people saying, oh, human trafficking is only across borders. And trafficking, the word trafficking actually gives people the sense that there is movement, there's mobility, there's cross-border transportation, but that's not the case. Transnational trafficking, cross-border trafficking happens, but national trafficking and trafficking within the borders of the country itself is more prevalent. So that's another thing we need to pay attention to, is making sure that the terminology is clear, fight these myths, ensure that the knowledge is out there so that everyone can understand, so that we are all on the same page. So there's a huge, huge, huge lack of awareness around this issue when we look at it from also a perspective of working with youth, looking at the youth advocacy spaces. When I started my journey, I started as a researcher. I was doing my master's. I spent my year researching what does human trafficking look like in Tunisia? Why don't we have research on it? Why don't we have a law? Why don't we have governmental officials or governmental bodies working on it? That was back in 2014. And I realized that the government, of course, is not going to say, hey, we do have human trafficking, let's put a law, because that is, and they would be admitting to their failure, that they failed their people, that they failed their system. So when we had the dictatorship back in, before the revolution, I'm sure you all know of the Tunisian revolution and the Arab Spring that we started. We couldn't talk about these issues. But then after that, it was very clear that that's the time for us to break from these silos and to actually speak up about these issues. So I started the research and I realized there was no local organizations fighting human trafficking that are only specialized in the issue, because we need organizations specialized in the topic, because this topic has so many intricate details that we need to connect. It needs a holistic approach. We can't just work on it individually in silos. It's something that needs infrastructure, and it needs that's why I love to hear that there's a coalition we need to work together in coalitions and task forces because each person will provide type of a service that meets the needs of the victims or preventing the victim to fall into that. So I started not first local organization in Tunisia that was just so like specialized in human trafficking. And of course I was 24 back then. I was 25. It was really a hard fight because no one wanted to talk about the topic. Even governmental officials will tell me, Russia, what are you talking about? We don't have trafficking in Tunisia. We're a democratic country, we're doing this and we're doing that and we're amazing. And I'm like, no, we do. We do have trafficking. Kids are being sold into the streets to work as beggars. Kids are being sold into the streets to work as domestic slaves. Like we have a very big, we had a very. It's getting less and less now with the efforts of the government, but it's taken for granted that poor children coming from rural areas are sold into rich families' houses and in different cities where the child is taken out of school and she starts working as a domestic worker. And these kids could be as young as 7 years old. That is atrocious. For us, when we look at it, the parents would say, oh, I didn't have money, but now she's working and she's supporting us and she's making money. But when you actually look at it, that child has lost her life. She does not have access to education. She's being treated terribly as a slave. She's locked in. And the parent is either taking half of the money while the person, the intermediary in the middle, is taking half of it, or all the money is going to the intermediary. So when we look at this, we need to understand that this crime is way bigger than we think it is. And we need to transform our systems and we need to transform our countries and not just tackle the problem as an ultimate issue. We need to look into the root causes. We need to look into poverty. We need to look into education. We need to look into gender based violence. We need to see that the majority of victims, for example, are females. Why is that? Because poverty is feminine, because migration is feminine, because women are the ones who are stuck in these socioeconomic injustices that are leading our community to just keep thriving in its injustice. So what we need to do is deconstruct these crimes and start looking at the root causes and say, all right, what do we have? What are the problems? Are we ensuring kids are in the schools? Are we ensuring that parents are held accountable? Are we ensuring that our government is held accountable? Are there laws? Are these laws implemented? For example, in Tunisia, we passed a law in 2017. No, sorry, 2016. And then in 2017, we had the National Commission Against Human Trafficking being put in place. So I was on the ground before they even came on board. I was doing the work on the ground. But of course, as a young activist, I was not given any support. I was not even listened to. I was excluded. The doors were shut. It was a very, very difficult struggle, but I didn't give up. And what I did is that, okay, I said, all right, I might not be able to sit with these politicians on the table. I might not be heard on that level. But what I could do is talk to the citizens, talk to my students. I was teaching at the university. I would talk to my students about that. I would go around the country, gather the activists, the youth groups, the students, and just talk to them, raise awareness, educate them, train them, give them the tools, and tell them, please raise awareness. We need to use our knowledge and create that ripple effect where the knowledge could be disseminated, so that we can ensure that more and more people know about the issue, and not only just to not fall into it as victims, because anyone can be a victim. But what we need to also take into consideration is that, for example, if I know someone who is a medical student and they want to become a doctor, if I talk to them about this issue, then in the future, when they actually become a doctor, they might take that into consideration and work on providing medical services to victims because they learned how they could actually detect the signs. Human trafficking is a crime that needs a holistic approach. We all need to be on the table, everyone. It takes it from the media officials, media professionals, government officials, advocates, youth, shelters, human rights advocates, lawyers, because they need to defend them. So human trafficking, like the work on human trafficking, falls under what we call 4 Ps. So prevention, action, prosecution, partnerships, but we also there is there's the big need for the rescue, right? So we can't really get to rescue if we do not have the other services in place. If I go and rescue a victim, where am I going to put them? We need to have shelters that are ready to take them in as an emergency exit, where they can find people, for example, caseworkers and case managers who are trained on trauma, who can deal with these victims who have seen atrocious things that happen to them. They need to feel safety. There should be safety. They need to have access to rehabilitations. They need to have access to lawyers that will take that case up and then work on prosecution. But then, how are we going to work on prosecution if there are no laws? So, for example, in Tunisia, we had a legal vacuum for so many years because it was not a priority. So, there's so much that we can do together. And I think the beautiful thing about this is that when we come together as a collective, each one of us could be responsible for a piece of that. And each one of us can defend and work on a part of that. So if you work in civil society, this concerns you. If you're a journalist, this concerns you. For example, journalists, a lot of them, they do not know how to protect victims when they are covering stories. In Tunisia, I've seen that. And what I did is that I went to the media professionals and I told them, I worked as a journalist and I would love to train you on how can you cover human trafficking stories from a human-centered approach, from a victim-centered approach, where you do not re-victimize the victim. And that is something a lot of people do not know. You know, like I see articles where in the media, journalists would actually put the face of the victim and their address and their name, but that's not okay. So we just need to be aware. We just need to educate ourselves. We need to educate others. And we need to know that this is a collective responsibility because the freedom of one is the freedom of all. And we cannot just turn a blind eye to it. So that's just to wrap up the experience so far from what I'm doing. And I think like how we could all work together. And I just want to, I have a few minutes left. I know I got the 5 minutes notice. Um, Another thing I wanted to say is, for example, like what I'm doing now with my new project, Youth Against Slavery Movement, because I started traveling around the world and realized that we all know that youth are the most vulnerable to trafficking, right? So how come youth are still excluded from all the spaces where these discussions are taking place? We don't find youth. I have been the only voice in so many advocacy spaces, and that was very, very damaging, because if most of the world population or half of the world population, which is the youth, is concerned, is the most concerned when it comes to this issue, how come they're excluded? So that's why now we are launching Youth Against Slavery Movement end of July. And what our aim is to, you know, engage and educate youth and empower them, give them the tools and show them how to actually collectively work on this issue, where they can take this out of their youth circles and also use it to mobilize their communities, their local communities, and talk to their people, so that they can also reach to the policymakers and we can all collectively create that ripple effect. I think I'm coming out to the end of my time. So if anyone has a question, I'm happy to answer. And thank you again for inviting me and giving me the space to talk.
Thank you so much, Rasha. You are an inspiration. Yeah, it's remarkable to have you in our space. Thank you for bringing the international lens and the general lens of human trafficking to our town hall event. We have a few questions, but we'll go to the questions later. I hope that you can stay around, stick around for us as we delve into this topic and put a Jamaican lens to it. One thing I would like to say too, most of the issues that you spoke about, you know, children participating in human trafficking as victims, not in their own will, but you know, because of circumstances, that happens in Jamaica too. You know, some aspects of it are general, while others are specific, and we'll delve into that a little bit more later on. Okay, so as I mentioned, to bring the national lens to human trafficking in Jamaica, I'd like to now invite our Shero, our first official featured Shero. Her name is Miss Beverly Waters. She's a human sex trafficking survivor and currently has transformed her pain into a path of motivation and empowerment for women and other victims of human trafficking in Jamaica. She's currently working as a trauma and courage coach, and I'm super excited to even listen once again to her powerful testimony. Ms. Walters, the virtual stage is yours.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Crystal, for having me on this platform and the Shero team. I'm so honored to be here tonight, to be on this platform sharing my experiences of human trafficking. I have some friends on here that I want to really thank for joining with me. I have like Stacy from Pursuit International. There's Colleen from Anti-Human Trafficking Officer. I have like Janice Wilson, my friends, persons from my church. I like that have the Christian Coaches Alliance, and I have persons from the Feast of Esther. And overall, there are some other friends that joining me tonight. And I am so honored to have my friends and board supporting me tonight. So as you heard so much about human trafficking, so I don't really need to go in that explanation again what is human trafficking. So I am a survivor from sexual human trafficking. And a lot of persons don't identify different types of human trafficking. And that is one of the human trafficking that I lived with for 9 years, where I was forced to have like sex. So my story is, as far as I can remember, from the age of 8, 6, I was sexually molested by three different perpetrators. One of them was my family member. I lived in that like for 9 long years before no one knew about it because I was threatened if I told anyone about it, I would be killed. And at that time, I was like a little girl because I was like 6 years old, 9, 7. So I lived with that fear for many years. And when it was revealed when I was like about 13 years old, I was told that I could not be put before my perpetrator. So I ran away from home, trying to search for love, trying to search for someone to reach out to me. And when I do run away from home, I remember I have a friend that living in Montego Bay. When I reached out to her, hoping that she would have welcomed me and opened her arms to me, she told me that I would have to go back home. So what I did, I refused to go back home. So I remembered I went back to Montego Bay in the city. I stayed on the street like about 3, 4 nights. When I realized no one was trying to reach out to me, I returned home. When I returned home, I was not accepted. And at this moment, I was rejected. I was like in pain. I felt like I wasn't nobody. I felt like I didn't belong to a family. So I lived with that for many years. And I was like there trying to seeking help, wondering how I'm going to survive through all of this. At that time, I was like finishing my last year in high school. So after finishing high school, I realized I couldn't get a job. I tried to search for jobs. I didn't have anyone to give me any money or anything. So I remember I tried to sign up for the youth service program. I was rejected from the program because I didn't leave high school with any qualification. So I was rejected from the program. But even though I was rejected from the program, I insisted to be on the program. So I was accepted on the program. So after getting on the program, I couldn't blend in with everyone else. I used to behave different what I've been through when I was younger. So I was there. I was recommended to see a psychologist for 6 months, and like this psychologist would prescribe like different medication for me that I am mental imbalance, but I refused to take them because at that time I was going through so much things in my life, and I just need someone to listen to me. I just need an open ears to someone to understand what I was going through. So I remember after finishing the program, I was placed at a school in my community work, but I could not stay there because so many persons know about my past. They used to tease me, calling me Mad Beb, calling me all different type of names. So I felt abandoned, I felt rejected, I felt broken. So I remember I reached out to a friend. I went to stay with a friend in Clarendon. While staying there with her after the program was finished, I still could not get a job after finishing the NYS program. So I remember I have a friend living in Montego Bay. I reached out to her and I asked her if I could come and stay with her. She said, yes, you can come and stay with me. When I went there to stay with her, I realized that I was not enjoying life. It's like I was like the slave for the family. I have to cook for the entire family. I have to do all the house chores for the family. So at this point I said I wanted a job. And I remember there was a neighbor. The neighbor normally bought the Sunday cleaner every Sunday. So I remember I used to borrow the Sunday cleaner and look in the classified. And all I could see in the classified was open-minded, attractive young ladies. So when I go to the Gleaner every Sunday, I realized that they were advertising like different type of job that they need like persons to work in bars, persons to work in different massage center. So when I reach out and at first I tried to call in to get the job at one of those places. And when I went for the interview, the interview was a bit turned off, but I was insisted to get the job. So when the person interviewed me, I realized she asked me to take off my clothes. She asked me like to take pictures, and I was saying, I don't understand what was this, but I was young, I was eager for a job, so I accept the invitation. And this is where I was exposed to human trafficking. This is where I was exposed to prostitution. This is where I was exposed to drugs. This is where I was exposed to so many degrading things. So when I just start doing it, I became uncomfortable at first, but after I realized other persons, other young like myself, because at that time I was like about 9 years old. So when I realized other young persons were doing the same thing, I get comfortable. And getting comfortable, I end up staying in that lifestyle like for 11 years. 11 long years I live in that lifestyle because of what I've been through when I was younger. I told myself I'm going to use this as an opportunity to use back every man in vengeance because of what I've gone through when I was a child. So I stayed in it for 11 years, and I know that this was not my life. I know that this was not my calling. So while I was there, I was like talking to God. I was talking to myself. I was saying, how can I get out of this? But before I went into that, I remember I used to go to a church. I used to go to a church at the Citadel of Hope International. The name of my bishop is Bishop Letitia E. McPherson. So I remember a family friend of mine died, and I went to the funeral. She was at the funeral. She was the one that preaching at the funeral. So I remember when I was there after the funeral, I tried to stay far from her. I tried to stay far from persons from the church. So after the funeral service and everything, I went to the house hoping that I would enjoy myself with the family. So I remember when she was there, so she were even persons from the church were there. So I tried to hide from her because somehow I didn't want her to come close to me because it's like she have like eagle eyes. So when I was there hiding from her, I went in the house. I felt someone grab my hand and she pulled me in the room and she said to me, Beverly, what is it that you're doing with your life? Because I'm telling you, she's a prophet, she can see through you. So even though she spoke to me, I still went back in the street because I decided this home. And when I come back home, I went to church. I went to church the evening. I remember it was like a summer when they were having like something for some back to school event for our children to go back to school. So I remember I went there the Saturday evening. So she was there and she saw me and she sent someone to come and call me. And I was saying to myself, why is it that she's calling me? I was dressed in skimpy clothes. I have like rings all over my body. And she sent someone to come. Anyway, I went to her. When I went to her, she said to me, Beverly, I need you to put back my dance ministry together. Because I used to be a part of the dance ministry because dancing is my passion. I love dancing. So she asked me to put back her dance ministry together. At first, she looked at me and she said, Beverly, you are so ugly. Ugly as in that, ugly as in the sin that was over my life because I was doing the road, I was myself out there. So when she said that to me, she hugged me. And when she hugged me, it's like I felt like something heavy lift off my head. I felt light again. I felt revived again. And when she hugged me, I started going back to church. I start praying to God. I'm saying, God, for your glory. I say, God, I want you to use me for your purpose. And I give God a chance into my life in 2013. And even though I accept God and I was living a life for God, I realized that I was living empty. I realized that there was more to my life. And I realized that there was a calling on my life. Because I remember when I was young, I said, God, what I've been through in life, I want to use it for your glory. I want to testify about your goodness. I want to testify about what you have done into my life. So in 2018, I went to a spiritual church brother of mine book launch, and I remember I met like a friend of mine. Her name is Crystal Lee. She's a publisher. She's a author. So I took her number because I always wanted to write my book. And when I took her number, I have her number in my phone like for weeks, until one day I was on Facebook, and I saw her pop up, and I sent her a friend request, and I started following her page, and I realized that she also do like life coaching. And since I said I wanted to do like psychologist and I did not get to do that, I decided that I was gonna do the life coaching course. So after I did the course, I get certified in the course as a Christian life coach. That is how I tap in the field of a trauma courage life coach, and because I help what I've been through, I have helped other young ladies, I help other women to overcome their past by sharing their testimony and building their self-confidence and being the person that God called them to do. So after getting trained in 2018, that same year, I went back to my community where I came from. I had my first conference. This is where a lot of persons write me up. This is where a lot of persons told me that I wasn't going to become anything successful in life. I went there to have my first conference, and I registered my business. And today I am using my past as a testimony. Today I'm using my past as a stepping stone. I am telling other women that it doesn't matter how you start your life, but it is rather how you finish. And today I'm using my testimony to empower, encourage, and empower other persons that are broken and need to be fulfilled in their God ordained purposes. And this is just a clip of my testimony. Thank you for having me, Crystal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miss Walters. Just hearing your story, it's real. We're living in the day of an age of this reality. There's not one look. There's not an ideal profile of how someone, who has been human trafficked look. There's no profile of the perpetrators, and I'm so grateful for you, Miss Walters, for using your voice to motivate us rather, and to empower us and to bring to reality this issue, and also more importantly, voicing this so that other people can get involved, the stakeholders. Russia spoke about the law enforcement. They talk about collaborating to make a change. So I really, really value you, and I value your opinion and your experience. You're a powerful woman, and I'm also very inspired. At this time, I just wanted to take some time to soak in the message, soak in the realities of Ms. Walters' experience, and soak in further Russia's position on human trafficking as a global issue. This is an important issue. Once again, if you're just joining us, welcome to our virtual town hall. This is a super chill space, a very safe space, and I'll also remind you guys, we're already dealing with a big issue. Let's not deal with the issue of infiltration on our Zoom. This is a safe space, as I said. So yeah, getting right along into our program, I'll now invite Anya B Music to give us a rendition and to further empower us. You might know Anya from her viral video that went global or international a few weeks ago in the outrage of the killing of Canis. This is a wonderful opportunity to have young people a part of this organization, or to have young people step up, with pride and with confidence to contribute to this discussion. So welcome, Anya B Music, and I can't wait to hear your performance. The stage is yours. And just, is Anya Anya, are you with us? Okay, I'll just give Anya a few minutes to introduce her video. I guess it's a challenge, working in. Okay, so Anya is speaking. I'll just ask my moderators to unmute her at this time.
Yes, thank you so much. Good night, everyone. It is truly my pleasure. I'm so sorry I can't have my video on at the moment, but I do hope you can, pardon me for that. Yes, so as I said, I'm Anya B, and I'm honored to be a guest with you here today to, share with you all. For a little intro, I am a child of God first and foremost, but also a head girl of an all-girls institution. So women empowerment is really dear to me, as well as, I focus on good mental health, especially in the light of these tragic circumstances. And the song I will be sharing with you today is actually from my newly released EP entitled I Am, under the name Anya B Music. And it's available on all the major platforms, so you can feel free to check it out. But the specific one is called Hold On. And the hope is really that you are encouraged to hold on to the one true vine, which is Jesus Christ. Especially now with everything going on and the climate we're living in. And also, if you have been through it, as we've heard stories tonight of those who have been in that environment, in those unfortunate circumstances. But it's my prayer that you never forget that you still have purpose and you still have great work and you can truly be healed. Just hold on. I pray you're blessed. Thank you.
What if life is not going my way? When ambition, it starts to decay. When the weeds, they take over, they're causing me pain. When I'm not bearing fruit, even after the rain. Oh, but God is the gardener, and Jesus the vine. He will cut off those branches that fail to fall in line. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on. Only true vine. Hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on to the one and only true vine. Hold on. Just hold on. Onto the great who turned water to wine. Hold on. What if life is not going my way? When ambition, it starts to decay. When the weeds, they take over, they're causing me pain. When I'm not bearing fruit, even after the rain. Oh, but God is the gardener, and Jesus the vine. He will cut off those branches that fail to fall in line. Just hold on. Just hold on. Only true vine. Hold on. Just hold on. To the great who turned water to wine. Hold on. What if you just let go of the vine? Well, in God you no longer abide. Your branches detached and you'll wither away, to be cast in the fire and burned as you lay. Oh, but God is the gardener and hears your cries. He will cut off those weeds that have been telling you lies. Just hold on. Just hold on. Hold on. Just hold on. To the great water to wine. Hold on. Hold. It's so easy to wanna let go. You ask God why me and you still don't know. He said he has big plans for you, but you gotta hold on to see the truth. What the word said. I am the vine. The vine. You are the branches. If a man remains in me, and I in him, what will he do? He will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on to the word. Oh, hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on to the great who turned water to wine. Hold on. In your season of that, hold on. Don't you worry, don't you fret. God's got you. Hold on.
Wow, I have to regroup myself. I have to really I can't find the words, and I'm slowly just trying to, hold back the tears. This is amazing, Anya, and dealing with such a heavy topic, we needed we need empowerment such as this. We need a reminder to hold on continuously. Thank you so much, Anya. Thank you so much again for advocating. I don't know if you're feeling like how I'm feeling, everybody. But I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited. I'm even getting chills. Oh my gosh. Super excited to have women advocating, not even women, but young women, youths advocating on this topic and using their voice in such a remarkable way. One thing I really want to say before I continue, this is an anointed space. And when I'm ready to tell my testimony about how I started, I want you to be reminded to, earlier I shared something on my social media. I said, little is much with God in it, and we can't do anything alone. So thank you all as well, Anya, for giving us that reminder. We're almost finished. We're almost close to the end of our program. Almost close as well to the segment where I want to hear from you, or where my team and I would want to hear from you with the questions that you have. So that we can best, address them and, just talk as if we're sitting at a dining room table or in our bedroom somewhere. Now, at this time, I'm going to jump into a more serious persona. I'm going to talk a little about who I am and about the birth of Shero. So for individuals just joining us, my name is Crystal Witter, and I am a recent graduate of St. Mary's University, and I pursued a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. As mentioned in the introduction, we're an aspiring nonprofit organization aimed at addressing human trafficking in Jamaica through advocacy, action, and awareness. I recently completed a project manager role where I spearheaded a hackathon aimed at addressing human trafficking in Canada. Throughout this job, I was exposed to a lot of knowledge about this dark world of modern day slavery, as Russia pointed out. I grew interested time after time working with stakeholders and learning from them, ways that Canada can use to develop a solution for this issue. From that experience, I thought, well, if this is the lens in Canada, if this is their reality, since I'm here, I wonder what the reality is in Jamaica. I started doing some research on Jamaica's current situation, and I was devastated. I could not understand what was happening. And somewhat inside of me, like I thought there should have been more happening. The idea behind Shero Jamaica came about in December, but further developed a few weeks ago. In the outrage of Candice's death, I put out a call to action on my social media page, because you all know when something, when anything happened, we're so quick to go to social media. This time I was one of them. I went to my Instagram page and I recorded a 40-minute video. If you watched that video, thank you very much. But I went to my social media page and I started out calling for action. I started out calling for people to join forces, to collaborate. In the video, I remember saying, we need to have a town hall. I was not surprised, but, clearly, though the video was shared over 200 times rather, I did not get anyone interested in collaborating or interested in promoting the town hall or even starting the town hall. Mark you, in my head, I wanted somebody to do it. I was asking for people to do it. I was asking for law enforcement. I was asking for government officials. I was asking for the big heads in our country to do it. And funny enough, I thought to myself, oh, well, oh, bruh, nobody, I don't hear anything, this video going all over the place, yet no one. So I started thinking, and then in my head, I was like, whoa, now I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to address this topic myself. And so I took it on. I created this event, and here we are today. My idea was that as a nation, we need to become more proactive instead of reactive. Proactive in the sense that we'll prioritize this issue and put plans in place to address it. We are reactive in the sense that if something goes viral, we jump on the bandwagon. Last week or 2 weeks ago, my entire social media was about, stop violence against women. My entire social media was about we need justice for the death of Canice, and so many others. There's a long list of names that we could call, but all we do is talk. And I know we're talking here today, but we have plans to take action. And I'll touch on those a little bit further. So my idea, as I mentioned, was to take deliberate, constructive action. I'm only 24 years old, but I'm so glad that God was in this mission to provide the individuals on my team to just have a meeting about how we can plan this event, and have a meeting about, whether or not we can make a change as youths. Everyone on my team, they're youths. We have a pharmacist, we have a journalist, we have entrepreneurs, we have freelancers, we have students. I studied psychology, but that's not my calling right now. And I'm happy to be here having this conversation. Not to go along for, hours, because sometimes that can happen, but just to give a recap of some of the things I learned during my research about Jamaica. So Jamaica is a source and destination country for children and adults subjected to sex trafficking and forced labor. Sex trafficking of children and adults occurs on the street, in nightclubs, bars, massage parlors, and private homes. Child sex tourism is a problem in the resort areas. Jamaicans have been subjected to sexual exploitation of forced labor in the Caribbean, Canada, the US, and the UK. While foreigners have endured conditions of forced labor in Jamaica or abroad, foreign flagged fishing vessels operating in Jamaica waters, a high number of Jamaican children are reported missing. Based on that statistic, are you concerned? Are you outraged at this reality? Are you even considering the fact that the missing and murdered women in Jamaica can be linked to human trafficking, the dark world as we speak of, the world of crime prevalent among us, beside us, in our neighborhoods, yet we're not talking about it enough. And that's why we are here. Some of the actions that we'll be taking, Shero Jamaica will be developing a website and an app that will assist in providing support to survivors and facilitate comprehensive training to better the response of all citizens. We'll also launch a scholarship program for survivors and contribute to the development of shelters to cater to both males and females. My ultimate goal is to collaborate with the stakeholders and develop a coalition where we can all work together. Decision makers need to be in this conversation. Law enforcement representatives need to be in this conversation. And not to scare you off this Zoom, but here's a reality. During my research, I wanted to find out the statistics. I wanted to find out, what is Jamaica doing? How can I help? How can we help collectively? How can citizens play our part? Because we have to. If no one does, who is? You know what I mean? If no one doesn't, who will? A few weeks ago, I went on a website and I've been contacting stakeholders, inviting them to join me in this discussion. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to, well, I was not successful rather at, getting in contact with the necessary groups that are big decision makers on this topic in Jamaica. Though discouraging, is even more empowering. If this conversation can go further than today, that will be a start, and that's our aim. So that's a whole lot to say and to unpack right now, but I want to hear from you. I want to hear what the questions are, and this is just a few minutes to talk and to answer all the questions that you might have following the panel, or before we start the panel will be co-hosted by Janine Daly, who will ask the questions on your behalf. So I hope that you've already started adding your questions in the chat, and I'll hand it over to Janelle.
Hello, everyone. Are you hearing me properly?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Thanks, Crystal. Welcome again to our virtual town hall meeting. We are delighted that you have joined in the conversation, that you're here to learn, that you're here to share as well, that you're here to lend a voice to the issue, right? And as we dive into the questions right now, or let me say, as we dive into this segment, I'm inviting you to go ahead over to the chat, ensure that you have the settings on ask questions to everyone, submit your questions, submit your myth. I'm inviting you to do that also because we're here to debunk the myths, right? Because there are a lot of things that people don't know about human trafficking. Somebody shared earlier, Coach Tammy, thanks for sharing, that she was unaware that human trafficking took place with children also. And something that we must also bear in mind is that there is the trafficking of organs. That is a whole different aspect of human trafficking, but it is something to consider. But on the matter of children, there are instances when you'll say to an adult, do you know sending your child out into the town? Do you know sending your child out into different spaces to sell is considered human trafficking? Even Tiki, if you are Jamaican and you are familiar with the spaces, you know that a lot of children are out selling candy and sweets, right? They're telling you that they don't have any money to go to school and whatever. There has been a case before when I actually stopped a child. I had a conversation asking, why are you here? Why are you not in school? I have to beg this week to go to school next week, or I have to beg for dinner this eve. They're not necessarily inclined to doing so, or they're not interested in doing so, but they have to. And on the other side of that is the matter of them doing it not for what we would consider a basic need. So there is that, and it is something to consider. Right. So I think it is necessary to lead with this question. Beverly, are you on the line? In sharing this town hall with persons, this was one of the responses that was sent in. I'm kind of not interested. I'm in a neutral space right now, and I don't want to go into a negative one. As a trauma coach, Beverly, I'm directing this question to you. There's some persons who would love to add their voice to the issue. There are persons who are moved by the issue. However, they cannot seem to bring themselves into that frame of mind to actually come into a space as this one, because it causes them to feel negative. It causes them to feel sad. How would you suggest that they, one, deal with the matter, and two, what is the best way for them to support or to advocate this topic with with priority on protecting their mental health?
Okay, I don't get the question clear. Please, could you repeat?
I'm going to repeat the response, right? So someone said, I'm not interested in joining. I'm in a neutral space right now, and I do not want to get into a negative one. As a trauma coach, based on your experience as well, I'm asking, what is your suggestion for persons who would like to lend a voice to the issue, who'd like to advocate, who'd like to turn up in a space like this to learn, or to ask questions, or to join a movement, but they have to ensure that they're protecting their mental health? How do you suggest they go about doing both?
Okay, first of all, people have to believe that human trafficking is real, because a lot of persons don't believe that human trafficking is real. As we explained, the different type of human trafficking, it is not just sexual human trafficking. As I experience sexual human trafficking, so I can share on that. So first, with all these issues, we have to believe it, because if we don't believe it is exists, we are not going to be able to take it up, and we're not going to be able to look out for it, because there are signs of human trafficking. There's a way to prevent persons from getting in human trafficking, because as I mentioned before, you have it like different type of advertisement in the Gleaner. So once persons see these things, they're gonna try to reach out, especially like when there's like you can work like for 50,000 or more. Persons are gonna try to reach out, because it is very important when you can focus on the things that you want to achieve, because the mind is very powerful. So if you don't put your mind towards certain things, you're not going to be able to benefit from it. So first you have to believe that it exists. We cannot throw the question aside and don't believe that it is there. It is there. And as you shared before, sending out a child on the street to sell, it is human trafficking. Because anything that you do that you benefit from, it is human trafficking. Because with me being sexually abused when I was smaller, I was not getting any money from my perpetrator, but my perpetrator was benefiting from it. So it is human trafficking. So many persons don't believe these things, that it exists, it is real, it is out there, and it is in Jamaica. So we have to believe it.
All right, thank you, Beverly, for sharing. So first of all, they must believe to be able to be inspired to share on the matter, right?
That's correct.
All right, and on the issue of mental health, because we've been hearing the news, we've been seeing the news on social media, and a lot of us will feel overwhelmed. And sometimes our first response is to just tap out and take a breather. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But when you think of wanting to share on the matter, wanting to teach somebody else about the matter, but you feel as if you're getting in a negative space, what are some of the subtle ways that persons can support the movement?
Okay, and repeat the question for me, please.
What are some of the subtle ways that persons can support the movement? Some of the simpler ways.
Okay, some of the simple ways that persons can support this movement. There's a saying in Jamaica, it take a village to raise a child. So once you can look out for these things, then you're able to help on these tasks.
Okay. And you touched on something a while ago about looking out for these things. I want to direct this next question to Russia, right? When persons go out into the public space, or let me say, when victims of human trafficking are out in the public space, which I understand sometimes it's very rare, especially children, they're screaming for help without doing so vocally. Russia, what would you say are some of the telltales that we need to look out for to try and identify trafficking when it is happening?
Well, identification, the problem is that, like identification doesn't necessarily mean you're actually going to be able to do something about it.
Right.
Let me tell you what that means. So for example, in Tunisia, when you identify a child in the street, you come across a child that is selling something, automatically that child is, being used by someone to sell something in the streets, and that is not a safe job for a child, right? So that child might be in a situation of trafficking, whether even if it's their parents or their teacher or someone in the neighborhood. Like we hear of people who go to schools and talk with kids and gather them and then use them to sell or whatever. So one of the problems is that you would identify that child as a victim, right? But then what are you going to do about it? If there is no law, if the police officers are not trained, even if you call them, you would be like, as a child, they'll be like, what are we going to do? We don't have a law. We don't have something that binds us to take action. That child is just supporting their family. So I came across these issues, and I even spoke with politicians in Tunisia, and I told them, what are we doing? And they said, it's a socioeconomic problem. It's in the root causes of our poverty. Parents are surviving through these kids working in the streets. So we need to go deeper than just fixing the symptoms. We need to go and fix our society, our community, our economic situation, so that these kids do not have to be in the streets in the first place. But talking more in general about the signs, so it's very important to understand that some of the most visible signs that we see in victims of trafficking is that they're afraid of communicating with you. They have a big issue of trusting others because they do not know who should they trust. So they stop trusting everyone, including police officers and security agents and everyone else. They do try to avoid, looking you in the eyes. You can sense the fear. For example, in situations where that person, let's say in a medical situation in a hospital, if that victim comes in beaten and is trying to get some medical support, if they do not have their identification on them. So that's a big piece of it. If someone is in a situation where they do not have their passport or their ID on them because the other person has power over that and they confiscate it, that could be a good sign for you. If you were a medical staff. Um, some of the issues we also come across is the language barrier. If you see that someone doesn't speak your language, and they're afraid, if you see let's say a domestic worker in your neighborhood who she can barely go out or he can barely go out, they're always afraid, they're always watching their back, they can't talk to you, they seem like someone is in control of them. That's a very good sign for you. There are really different signs and red flags that you should keep up with, but the most important ones are confiscation of documents, the sense of fear, the lack of trust. And it's very important for us to also keep in mind that victims of trafficking will not, the majority of them, which makes this crime even harder to prosecute, and it's harder for us to save the victims, is that a lot of the victims do not know that they're in a situation of trafficking, therefore they do not seek rescue. If you're in a place where you come across a victim, they will not come to you and say, hey, you are a police officer, please save me. because they are afraid from their perpetrator who is holding them. They are terrified that the person they will go to asking for support is going to even make the situation worse. So these are also so many different intricate details of the problem. But when we talk about domestic problems as well, like you're gonna see a child being trafficked by their parents. What are you gonna do? That's a question I would love to answer, to ask all of you. You know, what are we gonna do? What could be a solution for us? Because if you're gonna say, one of the times I attempted to, I called the police and I told them, hey, we have a law in this country that says kids are not supposed to be working in the streets, especially not in this hour, doing such a dangerous job, moving between this. Like there were kids who were even 5. So I called the police officers. They came, they tried to take that child. But then the problem is that where are they going to put the children? They do not have safe spaces. They do not have the contacts of the parents. And the parents are the ones who are putting the child in that place. So when the child is taken, they're terrified, they're traumatized, even from the capture by the police, because the police is not trained. So you're just making the situation worse. So that's why I'm saying, this problem needs everyone to be a part of it. Everyone needs to learn about it, and everyone needs to be trained on how to do their job in relation to that part of the operation. I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Russia. Just to follow up on what you just said, I'd like to pose this question to Beverly. Having been in the situation before, Beverly, somebody's asking this question: how can we as a general public play an active role in fighting against trafficking? What do you think? Share your thoughts.
Okay, what we can do to fight trafficking, as I mentioned, how I got caught in it is like the ads in the Gleaner. I think when persons post like messages to go in the Gleaner to advertise these things, is like persons that are in control are not doing anything about it. Because once these ads continue to put in the Gleaner, some of these ads like put us, I need like attractive young ladies, I need like bartenders, because any ad you see put in the Gleaner and they put like a sum of money that you can receive. This is a part of human trafficking because they use it as a glitter to catch person that need job. And also parents that are sending out their children to sell like things on the street, because sometimes young men see these young persons and offer them money, and because they need the money they take onto it. So how we can help to fight against it is that we can come against we can come against these things that they're putting out there, because these things are like glitter. So I hope I was able to answer the question, Janelle.
Thank you, Beverly. I'd like to share this myth. It's from Shanique. She says traffickers only target people they do not know. That is a myth. Of course, traffickers only target people they do not know. Anya also said ignorance does not even invalidate its existence. So ignorance does not invalidate the existence of human trafficking. Katie and Bartley shared, I think the person has to be healed from the experience to speak about it. And Melissa agreed. All right, we're up on another question. For victims of human trafficking who are unaware that they are victims, especially people from a poorer and less educated background, what can be done to identify and inform them and have them speak up to get themselves out of the situation, as well as share their experiences to inform others? Russia, do you want to take that one? I'm going to repeat the question. For victims of human trafficking who are unaware that they are victims, especially people from a poorer and less educated background, what can be done to identify and inform them and have them speak up to get themselves out of the situation, as well as share their experiences to inform others?
That's a tough question. I wouldn't say there's a direct answer to that, but what I would say is, the more we talk about the problem, the more we mainstream it. The problem is that this issue is not mainstreamed. Like, you don't see it something that everyone hears about in the media and the news. It's not. For example, I live in the US. That does happen here. You know, if you turn on the TV, you would see operations against these traffickers, and like the news is full about human trafficking in the US. But outside of the US, it's a whole different situation. And that's why I'm saying we need to mainstream the issue. We need to get it out of that exclusion circle where it's just being discussed in the Security Council and in some certain spaces in the UN, and certain spaces with policy, like the high level. It has to be something we all talk about. It has to be something we all relate to. So we need to mainstream it, whether awareness raising, whether media, whether education, formal, informal training, capacity building, because the more people talk about it, the more victims will also hear about it. So the more we will reach victims in the different areas. And it's really hard to know where the victims are, because traffickers are really good in keeping these victims in confinement and away, because these victims are their commodities, they are their business. So you need to keep them so that you can keep making the money. So for example, if we're talking about rural areas, if we're talking about outside of the cities, if we're talking about, we're not in the capital, how can you get there if people are not even watching TV, if they're not watching, maybe you can use radio stations, you can use local radio stations, you can collaborate with them and tell them, hey, how about we talk about this topic once a week. You can talk to your local media and say, hey, how about we just put a little article about what this means? How does it look like? How does it affect people's lives? Talk to students, all ages, start from the beginning. The younger you are, the more vulnerable you are to being trafficked. So talk to kids, go to schools. You have a school next to you. Go talk to the headmaster and say, I would love to come and chat to the kids about human trafficking and how can they protect themselves. For us to be able to reach the victims, we ourselves who are not victims need to stand up collectively, rise up, educate ourselves, educate others, and try to disseminate the information, mainstream the issue, and simplify it, because the language still is really the jargon is still very, very exclusive, and it's not digestible for so many different age levels, especially if we talk about youth, 35 and younger, let alone 15 and younger. So we need to work with the language, we need to explain it, simplify it. And that's how, like, I have a friend who was a survivor, she was trafficked for so long in her life and she didn't know. And then one day she was watching the news and saw an operation or a situation that actually related to her situation, and that made her think, oh my god, looks like I'm in a situation of human trafficking. She didn't know for so many years, 20 years, I guess. So she had to see it somewhere, she had to hear it from someone. So that's our duty as citizens of this world, is that we need to raise these issues so that we can get to everyone who's concerned, and who's being trafficked and who's stuck in these situations. Thank you. I hope that answered your question.
Alrighty, thank you, Rashma. All right, next question that we have here. Somebody is asking, oh wow, Beverly, this one, I'd like you to take this one. Not many after being rescued will speak out. Why? Somebody is asking, why is it that survivors are fearful of speaking out and sharing their story?
Okay, most persons are not gonna speak out if they don't overcame the situation, because there's no one gonna share a mess that they're in and they are still doing it, because it really took me a whole lot of courage to share what I have been through. So you're not gonna be able to speak about it unless you get healed. You're not going to be able to share it with anyone unless you're healed. So if somebody come to you and want to talk to you about what you're going through, you're not going to feel free to open up to them. You're not going to trust them. So you have to really trust the person. You have to really become comfortable with the person to speak about what you're going through. Because no one not going to go on social media and share and say, I'm a prostitute, I used to do this or I used to do that. You have to really overcome the situation. You have to really overcome the hurt for you to share about it. Because it really took me many years before I started sharing about this. Because it was in 2013 when I gave my life to God. It was still in 2018 I started sharing my story. I didn't start sharing my mess same time. It really took me years because once you have a wound, once you have a cut, you're not going to be able to talk about it or get over it until you're really healed from that situation. It is like a healing process because I went through so much healing before I really come on here because now I talk about what I used to do is that it is nothing to me. And as our presenter shared before, is that we have to talk about it because one of the things that First Youth International, that is Stacey, she's online here with us. One of the things that she did, she go like in different schools. She talk about it because as I shared, when I was going through my trauma, when I was going through sexual molestation, when I used to go to school, if someone come to school and talk about human trafficking, I would not end up in human trafficking because so many persons keep this under the carpet. Persons don't really talk about it. So we have to be able to go out like in different schools. It's like go like different meetings, go like different youth clubs, like different seminars. It's like we have to talk about it, that persons can aware of it, that persons can know about it. Because when I used to be out there in human trafficking, I did not know it was human trafficking until 2018 when I started to meet like different persons in my life. So persons are in it and they don't know it is human trafficking because once somebody collecting money to allow you to have sex with somebody, it is human trafficking. Whether you are keeping the money for yourself, it is human trafficking. Once a person is benefit from you, it is human trafficking. Most persons don't talk about it in Jamaica. Most persons don't believe it is in Jamaica. It is in Jamaica. And what we have to do to save our nation is that we have to go out there and talk about it because persons are not just going to come forward. Persons are not going to come bold and say, I am doing this, I need help. It really took courage. It really took healing for somebody to come forward and talk about this. I hope
Okay.
I was helpful with this.
Yes, you mentioned your healing journey just now. Can you share with us what were some of the resources or what were some of the support systems that you wish were in place to help you out of that situation or even to help you to heal?
Okay, some of the resources that I wish was in place, I wish somebody would have come to me like from persons that are in authority because when I used to go to primary school and I used to go to high school, no one didn't really know what I was going through because persons don't provide these information for persons to benefit from. So how I was able to get healed from this is like it is like from mentors, it is like from like persons from a church. So up to now, I haven't went through any counseling or anything like that. As I shared in my story, it's like I used to see the psychologist for 6 months, and this man just diagnosed me that I was mental imbalance. He didn't understand what I was going through. So it's like I just get resources, help from mentors and church. And for many persons, it will take like a lot more for them to heal or to be able to overcome that process in their life. Persons get healed in different ways, persons get healed in different areas. So I was able to just get healed from that, but persons took like many years. Persons have to go through like counseling, like long session therapy and all those things for them to get healed. So it is not really easy for somebody to get healed because when I decided that I want to stop doing human trafficking, it's like this minute I don't have any money. I went back out there as our presenter share is like once you're in poverty, it's gonna push you into human trafficking, and some person just not aware that they are in human trafficking.
All right, Beverly, that led me to the other question. Someone here is asking about the reality of convincing someone who has fallen in love with a pimp that she is being exploited. And before you answer that question, I want to point out that, you know, I met Beverly through another human trafficking survivor, and I've heard her story so many times. And one of the things that always stand out to me each time is hearing her say, even at one point, she had the option of going home, right? So the pimp told her or told them that, you know, you can leave if you want. And majority of them opted to stay. One, because of the money. Two, the shame of going back just being a whole new person and not having someone to understand or to lend a helping hand or to support, or having persons from what you would consider a safe space to look down on you, to react a certain way to you, as Beverly experienced as well with that person in Montego Bay. So it's a natural thing for persons to grow. It's called the Stockholm syndrome. So they grow to become comfortable to some extent with the persons who are managing them, using the keywords, with the persons who are managing them, right? So somebody here said, reality check, how do you convince someone who has fallen in love with a pimp that she is being exploited? From what you know, Beverly, from what you've experienced, what are your suggestions?
Okay. Some persons fall in love with pimps for different reasons. Some of them don't understand what they're doing because as our presenters share about poverty, some person will be ashamed to go back in the life where they are coming from. So some of them will just fall to the situation and said, I'm gonna get comfortable in this lifestyle. It don't make sense. I move on with my life. But I would encourage a person to ask yourself the question, where do I see myself 5 years from now? Would you want to see yourself living in that lifestyle for the rest of your life? It is unless you don't really have a plan for your life, unless you don't really plan to go further in life. Because if you can ask yourself the question, how far do I see myself 5 years from now? Where do I see myself 10 years from now? Do I still see myself in this lifestyle? Do I still see myself living this life? Because many of these film, they don't come out of it until them really can't do anything for themselves or unless they get caught in the situation.
All right, thanks for sharing, Beverly, again. So now a lot has been said about education, about reaching out to persons on a grand scale, ensuring that people know. One of the things we cannot deny is that we're in an age of technology, right? And we've been lamenting about the need to get rid of the ignorance, the need to debunk the myths, right? And the fact that trafficking takes place mostly with young people, that is also something to bear in mind. And we have to create a strategy to be able to infiltrate these, or let me say this web, to be more specific. I want to call on Rihanna Tate right now. She has done some work in technology and human trafficking. She worked along Crystal with the community hackathon that was mentioned earlier. And I want to ask Rihanna, how can technology be used to address this issue?
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, technology is one of the few things that we take with us every and anywhere. And that is one reason why it is very effective. Now, as you mentioned before, I work with Crystal on the project that is called the Hackathon. And the aim of the hackathon was to see how we could best implement technology to combat human trafficking. And in that, I came up with a solution that I would like to call the Swift Hack feature. Now, the Swift Hack feature is a software that will be embedded into every portable device, such as iPods, phones, watches, whatever it might be. Now, this feature would allow you to simply tap your phone when being exposed to the human trafficking environment. So let's use Jasmine Dean, for example. I think everyone here knows of Jasmine Dean's story. She's a visually impaired university student who went missing without a trace. And even today, her case is left unsolved, right? So let's say Jasmine was walking home from school, then she was suddenly attacked. Jasmine is visually impaired, so she would not be able to open an app because there are apps that we can use to notify the authority that we are in trouble, but Jasmine would not be able to go and open an app fast enough, right? So the Swift Act feature would allow Jasmine Dean to make a simple tap sequence, tap on her phone, and that would immediately alert the authorities that she is being exposed to the human trafficking environment, right? Another reason why I came up with this solution is I want to prevent rather than cure. Yes, there are instances where we get trafficked and then we might live to see another day, might. But my project aims to prevent such tragedy before it even happens. So that is pretty much the Swift Act feature and what it is meant to do. There are other strategies such as I said before, apps where you could go on to notify someone or speak to the authorities, or websites where you could speak to a coach such as Miss Walker about your situation or whatever it is. But the Swift Act feature is just made to prevent a person from being trafficked, pretty much. Oh, that is the Swift Act feature. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, Rihanna, thank you guys. I'm noting here that there are a lot of questions and comments in the chat. We are just about wrapping up now, but one of the things that I must say is that all your questions are being looked at carefully. I must say as well that I think Crystal mentioned this in the beginning. The point of the town hall meeting is to see where we are as a society as well, because this is a very sensitive topic. It is a discussion that many do not want to have, and we are quite aware of that. But seeing all the questions here, it's hopeful. To be honest, it is hopeful. I'm feeling hopeful about it. Going in detail and looking at the questions, seeing the weak areas, seeing where more information where more information needs to be presented. There's a lot being said here about the classifieds and the verification of jobs, and just seeing it, I'm telling you guys, it's so hopeful, because now we're hoping that we can get persons to come and to speak on each topic, present information that is necessary and helpful. On that note, I implore you guys to continue reaching out to Shero Anti-Trafficking League Jamaica. We are on Instagram, and the email address will also be shared by Crystal, who I'll be handing over to now to do the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Janelle. This was a very informative discussion, and we really love the questions. It shows that there are other citizens in Jamaica ready and waiting to have this conversation, who's willing to act and support us. Thank you once again. I just want to do a quick informal thank you. Thank you once again to Dale for performing. Thank you to Anya B Music for her beautiful rendition. Thank you to our expert in the house, Rasha, who, brought more inspiration and spoke to the reality of human trafficking at a global context. I'm very inspired by all the women, advocating, and inspired by the men too, who are also working to advocate on our behalf. In the chat, I placed included the email address to contact us at. We will follow up with the questions, and we want to hear from you after this. This is the start, and we'll continue the momentum, and hopefully engage the stakeholders in Jamaica. I acknowledge that we can't do it alone. Myself and my team, we can't do it alone, and we need the traction. We need these things to, be more public and more available to other people who have a similar interest. So the email address is Shero Anti-Trafficking League.ja@gmail.com. Stay tuned for our next event in the near future. But like I said, it was beautiful to be here, and it's so inspiring to be able to help you guys or to learn from you. I've learned a lot. I'm not an expert. One day I will be, because I'm passionate and my team is also passionate. In the closing thanks, I also want to say thank you for making this possible. Without the participants, there would not have been a virtual town hall. We see the questions, we hear them, and we will address them by email. I guess that's my end. It's very overwhelming just to see the support. And one last thing before I officially end or close, again, little is much with God in it. We could not have been here without him. And the message or the mission he laid on my heart and the heart of my team, and so many other advocates and stakeholders working to address this issue overall. So with that, we will now close with Anya's powerful video that went viral. If you haven't seen it, this is a chance for you to see it. And we'll be hanging around for a few seconds, but after the video, we will close. If you have questions, again, just drop them in the chat. We'll save the questions, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Enjoy your night and your curfew weekend if you are in curfew in Jamaica. Thank you once again.
Just hold on, just hold on to the one and only true vine. Hold on, just hold on to the great who turned water to wine. Hold on. What if life is not going my way? When ambition it starts to decay, when the weeds they take over, they're causing me pain. When I'm not bearing fruit even after the rain. Oh, but God is the gardener and Jesus the vine. He will cut off those branches that fail to fall in line. Just hold on, just hold on, just hold on. What if you just let go of the vine? Well, in God you no longer abide. Your branch is detached and you'll wither away, to be cast in the fire and burned as you lay. Oh, but God is the gardener and he hears your cries. He will cut off those weeds that have been telling you lies. Just hold on, just hold on. Hold on, just hold on to the great who turned water to wine. Hold on, hold on. It's so easy to wanna let go. You ask God why me and you still don't know. He said he has big plans for you, but you gotta hold on to see the truth. What worth it? I am the vine.